think building in depth and interest, and I think it goes to show that as you connect with people and they get used to the idea of sharing their thoughts and opinions a little bit deeper, that you can actually have some really meaningful conversations.
And I've seen Trevor's now
in fact, interesting.
Yeah. Sorry, Ian, carry on.
Looked like Trevor is
Sorry, I just
mirror and looking at what is his best side for this conference. Trevor, how's the bricklaying?
Listen, I feel like I'm into the 4th day of the doozy. I'm stiff and sore all over. Shoulders are gone. But this is definitely my last day. I'm on my last packet of Dogger cement. So as soon as we get off this particular process, I'm rushing straight there. I've got about another 3.5, 4-hour shift, and then it's done. So I'm excited about that, but I'm stiff and sore.
Morning, Herman.
Good morning, Ivan, and the rest of the team. Did you start early?
No. We just people just coming online now. So 8 o'clock. So we're 1 minute past 8. So we just waiting as people come on, and I think we're basically ready to get going.
You must sit still, Ivan. Ian. You move around so much, you make me seasick.
you see, I'm just moving my phone around so just to keep you on your toes.
Oh, there's a phone.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Okay, Lee, I think if you want to kick us off, let's get going.
Yeah, I think maybe to pick up on what Ian was saying is that as a summary from yesterday's conversation, we were talking, it started off asking, what questions are you asking yourself to stimulate your thinking about redesigning your life, evaluating where you are, reprioritizing. And, this is a great opportunity now to think about those questions. And then it got to the point of saying, well, it's not just about asking the questions, it's about communicating exactly what your answers are, and then getting some response, which means that the context that you find yourself in is going to create the environment for a positive or a negative response. So that comes back to the people that you're with. And the people that you surround yourself with, and are they the quality people or the kind of people who are going to support you, encourage you, and give you the feedback. It's not just about encouragement and support, it's also sometimes about the pushback, and are you up to that? So these are just, and then as I was thinking about that, I thought, well, it's not just about the people that you're with. If we go back to being, inward, who are you the person? Are you somebody that other people would look to as somebody that would encourage them, or elicit from them, or invite from them something that is positive and good, and drives something that has something that that they want to achieve. In other words, bringing out the best in them. Are you that person? So maybe if I just pause there for a moment and just ask if there's anybody that wants to comment on that.
Thanks, Lee. Yeah, well, maybe what see Herman's unmuted himself, so Herman, go for it.
Well, excuse me, I just wanted to come back very briefly to the topic of language. When I personally speak about language, I'm not referring to Zulu, Sotho, English, or Afrikaans. I talk about the facility that is common to us, to all humans actually, that allows us to express and listen to words irrespective of our mother tongue. And I think there is a need, and that's again referring to language, to expand our vocabulary, which allows us to see things from different perspectives and expand or increase our knowledge as well. So it's not so much the methodology or we are talking in, but the expansion of your vocabulary. It's just to repeat that little quote by Wittgenstein when he said, "The limit of my language is the limit of my world." And by expanding that my language, whether it's German, Russian, or whatever, I expand the limits of my world.
Great, thanks, Herman. Ian, I see you also unmuted. Do you want to have a quick word there?
Yeah, it was interesting because when I saw that little summary that Lee put up yesterday, I've actually done exactly that. During the last couple of days, I made a decision to extract myself or remove myself from a group where I felt that I wasn't. It was creating an atmosphere that was unsettling for me. So I've made that decision. It was really quite interesting that timelessly you had the discussion yesterday. But also, as opposed to the question about, you ask yourself and say, well, are you conducive, or are you the type of person that people want to surround themselves or include in your group? So that's always an interesting question. So I just wanted to make that comment that I actually had made that decision the last couple of days for that very reason. And as I think it's Deepak Chopra and Eckhart Tolle talk about, is this collective unconsciousness, this surround yourself with people, and suddenly all these opinions. It's like the coronavirus. I mean, everybody's posting this and posting that and posting the next thing, which creates this environment where people start saying, commenting, and it's ridiculous. And that's this collective unconsciousness that actually creates our own thought process, which is dictated to by other people's opinion, that we can so easily be drawn into. And that's the danger we face with social media, especially things like coronavirus. But for me, it was a business decision with this group that was just infectious for me, and was not, I just made the decision to say, well, I've got to move myself away from that because I know that's not working for me. So interesting discussion you must have had yesterday on that.
Great, thanks, Ian. Yeah, Guy, I see you also unmuted there.
Morning, folks. Sorry, my laptop can't even get connection, so I'm on my smartphone. And I thought I'd be like Trevor and wear my Just Do It cap today, 20, so just do it. Interesting, I joined another group yesterday that gets together on Zoom at 4 o'clock every day, and I did send you, I think, Lee, via LinkedIn a message to contact the lady, Noli Thompson, if you wish. She is a LinkedIn fundi. And what was just briefly very interesting, the people around the country, and the one lady from Cape Town said she can't believe the amount of noise going on regarding C19. So wherever she goes or looks or whatever, so she's actually cutting herself off, because everyone, for a while, wherever she looks on Facebook, anywhere, there's a C19, and for her it was just getting too much. So anyway, it's good to be with you. At least I've got some connection and whatever. Thank you very much.
Right, thanks, Guy. Good morning. Yeah, I think one of our first sessions, I said, I think we not only need to practice social distancing, but social media distancing, and actually just not engage with all this nonsense that's being posted, and just stick to what's what we're doing here, and focusing on the good questions, on the right questions, and how we actually looking to take this thing to the next level. Cecile, I see you're online with us. Do you want to have a quick word and good morning to you?
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't find the Zoom ID. So I had to flip through my phone to find the Zoom ID. Yeah, it's good to talk to all of you again. Yeah, interestingly enough, I'm doing a 30-day challenge with Dean Graziosi and Tony Robbins. And on day 2, was the don't watch any news. So yesterday was my day of don't watch any news, and it's quite uplifting if you don't have to watch the TV and see what's going on the news all the time. And yeah, so we formed quite a lot of little groups yesterday, various family members and other business associates, just to also chat like we're doing. So yeah.
Great, thanks, Cecilia. Stella, good morning. Welcome back this morning again. Glad to see you here. You want to maybe just say good morning and add any thoughts that you might have on the comments so far?
Morning, everybody.
Morning, Stella.
No, just there's not much to add really, but again, that fascination with language, because if we then speak the same language, and I'm not talking about English, you know, we then, you will find your community, whether it's on social media or not. But I really do understand the advice to kind of stay away from social media a little bit. And it's kind of a practice of fasting for me. That's all that I just maybe wanted to add. From time to time, we really do need to fast all those things that are chowing up our time, because that's where your even your variable expenses are sitting. You know, whatever that's an addiction to you, and I think social media is a huge addiction. You do need to, from time to time, fast it anyway. So what we used to do with my wife and some other guys is that let's stay for 21 days again. Before this lockdown situation, would stay for 21 days without going on social media, just to train the mind to just fast those things that are eating up the time, because time is money. So, you know, that's all that I kind of wanted to add on that.
Right, thanks, Leah. So you're unmuted. I'm assuming you want to pick up there.
Well, I was wanting to, I wondered whether we could move on and start, you know, connecting with the slides that I sent out yesterday, which looks at, as Ian, so I'm going to let me just get to share my screen. So these are principles that come from our program, The Difference Maker. And the very first principle is know that you are a role model to someone. You know, and I often ask the question, so do you want to be a role model, or do you think you are a role model? And of course, people want to be, they maybe aspire to that. And they may even, you know, in a sort of self-deprecating way, say, oh, you know, I'd like to be, but I'm not sure that I'm up to it. And we kind of think of role models as people that we put on pedestals, or people that, you know, have the qualities that we want to emulate or to, you know, copy and follow. And it just is a case actually of putting the mirror in front of us to say that, like it or not, someone somewhere will follow your lead and your example and do exactly what you do. So it's not a case of wanting to be a role model or aspiring to be a role model or thinking that you are. It's the reality is you are. It doesn't matter who you are, where you are, you know, what status you have. There are people in your circle that are looking up to you, whether you know it or not. And they see something in you that they admire. And again, it might not be something that you're even aware of, but they're following what you're doing. And it's this image of, you know, I'm seeing you and observing you. And I think just before I closed, just this sort of little input and then open it just for discussion, is there are people that know you and you may even know them, and they're watching you and are following you as a role model. But people follow complete strangers. You know, you've seen people, you know, the taxis going down the emergency lane or jumping robots. And for me, that's normal taxi behavior. Like that is what taxis do. But then you see a normal sedan or another little car, and they're following in the taxi's rear, and it's oh, if the taxis can do it, I can do it. So they don't even have to admire somebody. If they feel somebody else is doing it, it feels like permission. So yeah, it's just this whole thing of following that we and are we the kind of people that others want to follow?
Great, thanks, Lee. I think lots of things to think on there. Who would like to comment on that? Trevor?
Yeah, I'm going to come in because I think this series of slides here used to relate to us within our physical realm. But I'm also taking note that people can role model you off this little screen here. The way that you actually pick your nose in front of 125 odd people, I don't know how it looks to you, but the way that you actually come across on the screen, and I'm also starting to recognize I have to change my t-shirt every day, but I only do it for 30 minutes, I want to tell you. But people can actually see what you're doing on the screen, and using this technology, you have to be highly aware of what it is you're conveying across the screen. So I thought I'd throw that in because I think the technology just ramps up, it magnifies what it is that you actually do, which we didn't even think about when we put these slides together many years ago.
Great, thanks, Trev. Yeah, and I think, as Stella was saying earlier, we actually will need to take a bit of a fast from social media now. I watch a lot of people, and it's not just the youngsters these days. I've seen people in their 30s, 40s, and 50s totally driven by this thing. Every time it beeps, or the next tweet comes up in their feed, or the next post on Facebook, and they're following this myriad of people that they've never met, they don't know, they've decided is somebody worth following on social media, and it dominates their lives. It's driving their responses and their actions.
Yeah, I just want to add to that thought as well, Ivan. When that was being mentioned, I think it might have been Herman talking about the word addiction came into my mind. In fact, it was Taylor who was talking about it. But I think we are prone to addiction. That when we jump onto something, we jump on 1,000% as human beings, and we get addicted. So you've actually got to balance that out, and I think we as South Africans actually understand better than most people in the world. Well, definitely I do. When it comes to taking a holiday, this thing gets thrown out and we go away for a couple of weeks and don't let anyone actually contact us, and you come back refreshed. And we have the physical space here in South Africa to be able to do that. So you've got to drop these addictions, and I totally agree with the point being made there by Stella, I think it was. Yeah.
So thanks, Trev. Herman, I see you unmuted.
Yes, I think there's a danger with role modeling via social media, because the majority of us tend to follow people who virtually have the same opinion like we have, which of course leads to a cognizant blindness eventually, because we don't see the rest of the world anymore. And that's what I see as a big disadvantage of social media in general, and of Facebook in particular. Going back to the whole coronavirus thing, I converted a Facebook page called Masakane, Build South Africa, completely to the, I dedicated it during the lockdown to the COVID-19. And the interesting thing is that and all I'm trying to do is to give examples what we can do, where we can help others, and stuff like that. And you know what? Not many people are interested in that. But if you start bitching that the government is letting us down and this is not happening, you have 500 likes. Yet if you make a constructive proposal, you get 5 likes. So that whole thing of role modeling via social media is actually quite dangerous.
Okay, so I'm going to come in and absolutely disagree with Herman Funk here. And here's the point: we're not into groupthink, Herman, and that for me is the difference between role modeling and groupthink. I think the point that is being conveyed in these particular slides is be very careful. Whatever it is that you're doing, someone else is actually watching you, and whether what you do is a good habit or a bad habit, that someone else is going to hero worship you. That's the one point. And the other point is, I want to absolutely disagree with you, because I want us in this forum to be disagreeable. And that is to be able to debate with maturity on different thoughts, ways that you actually behave, just to debate with absolute maturity that allows us to step up to another level. Anyway, I'm just saying that tongue in cheek, just to push your buttons a little bit, Herman.
You're not pushing buttons, Trevor. I do agree with you, but again, and I specifically referred to social media and the desire by many people only to align with those who have the same thinking. And I think this group is a demonstration of the opposite. And that's what I actually would like to see social media to be about, to challenge critical conversations and not kind of stepping into an agreement mode because Johnny is actually having the same opinion like I have, even though Johnny is a total arsehole. Excuse me for the expression.
Ian, I see you unmuted there if you'd like to take over.
Yeah, this whole thing about hero worshipping and people obviously taking you as a role model is sometimes you have no control over that, but other times you do. And the biggest enemy for me is ego. I mean, I've got an ego the size of the Rock of Gibraltar, which has many times in my life got me into more trouble than I care to think about, and caused me to make decisions that weren't the right ones because it was driven by ego. And I think that's the biggest enemy is just making that conscious effort to stay out of the limelight and show a bit of humility. And I think that's kind of something, from my point of view, that I think is important in moving forward, especially in this time, because your big ego certainly is going to display itself quite vividly, especially in something like social media.
I just want to add something in the vein of Trevor, who just want to throw curveballs at stuff. But maybe on the same vein that someone is looking at you as to hero worship you, I'm saying the opposite is also true, that everybody is affecting everybody. And I'm not necessarily wanting to emulate you, but what you're doing is showing me definitely what I don't want to be. And you often see it in children who just say, I don't want to be like my dad, and then go the opposite route totally. But I'm saying, so this thing is positive as well. You can see negative behavior somewhere illustrated or emulated in a real life person, and then realize, listen, I don't want to have that character trait in my life. I'm going to move away from it.
Okay, thanks, Jasper. Lee, I see you unmuted.
Yeah, so I think what the point that is also being made here, and it's in the context of the difference maker, is that if you own the fact that you are a role model, however you want to call that, we call it a role model, but basically it's somebody that that we all have within us the opportunity to impact people around us, known and unknown, for good and bad. So that gives us, even if you feel like, oh, I'm not anybody special, or I'm not anybody that knows a lot of stuff, that actually every single one of us has the power and the ability to impact the lives of those around us. I mean, this is just an example of people just, Jasper, you picked up the example of, kids following dads or the opposite. But this is the slide I want to get to, is that it isn't about just waiting for somebody else to take the lead. It's about owning our own power and responsibility to make a difference, that even just any action, any words that we take and do actually has a ripple effect in the lives of other people. And how do we are more conscious of that?
Great, thanks, Excella. I see you up there.
Yes, I wanted to just pick up from where she left off, because she speaks about accountability, and I think really that's the main key. For me, even when we started talking about being a role model, what I was realizing is that how can I be authentically myself so much that I don't have to think too hard about how do I come off to people? What if there's a community that will just accept me for where I am and who I am and how I am? What if I could just be so authentically myself that I don't have to work at being myself in front of people? I don't want to send people the agent, the representative. I want to send them me. I want to just be myself. But I think then the key becomes, are you accountable for what that really actually means in the greater scheme of things? Because in being yourself, you'll make certain decisions. I may offend just by adding a comment on this group, but I want to be myself. I want to say as I feel so that I'm authentically myself. Whoever that gets offended, that's also okay. That just means you have a different opinion. Just like Trevor was saying, there's nothing wrong in having a different opinion. So sometimes it's just me being authentically, this is what I believe in. So for me, how I was seeing it is, yes, I am a role model to someone. It's not even a debate. It's not even a desire from my side, just as the slides were describing. Somebody's already looking at you and they are role modeling. Now, are you going to be accountable for what you put out into the world? Are you going to be accountable when what you're putting out to the world causes somebody else to as a role model, you are directing them somewhere else? That then touches on the issue of what Herman was talking about with social media. Because I absolutely agree, we tend to follow blindly, and then we follow only the voices that are saying what we need to hear or what we like to hear. But at the end of the day, are you going to be accountable for what you put out? Because if you start deciding, I want to save people, are you going to be accountable for being a savior? That sort of a thing.
Great, thanks a lot. I think some really good points there. One of the things that reminds me of is the concept of what's called situational morals and situational ethics, and matching that up against what integrity really is. And unfortunately, too many of our so-called leaders have situational morals and situational ethics. So they sway whichever the way they think the populist wind is going to blow at a particular point in time, rather than having integrity and accountability for their words and their actions. So yeah, I like that very much. Trevor?
Yeah, I just wanted to back up Excella on this, in that the vast majority of people just don't understand the effect that they have on other people. And when you actually bring this up, it becomes an aha moment. It's really only the few who really understand what impact they have on society, as the butterfly effect goes, that the little flutter of a butterfly's wings on this part of the world can cause a cyclone or hurricane on the opposite side of the world. Most do not know the impact that they have on society just by whatever little action that they take in the last 3 seconds in a group of 3 people, and how that snowballs. And the coronavirus is clearly an indication of how quickly something spreads, because it spreads by huge numbers exponentially through 5, 6, 7 billion people, soon 8 billion people.
Great, thanks, Trevor. It also makes me think of a TED talk I saw about how the search algorithms on Google and the profiling algorithms on social media and Google actually work, and how they actually start to profile you. And if any of you know the Cambridge Analytica story around the Trump election, and those sorts of things, you can see how people who are just blindly participating in the social media experience, of actually being manipulated through that process, because they aren't asking questions, they aren't thinking for themselves, they're just following and assuming what they're being fed is actually fact, where you need to have a real questioning mind and make some real decisions for yourself. Stand by your values, your integrity, as Sela was saying. Are you accountable for what you're actually watching and you believing that's been sent your way? Yeah, Herman.
Reflecting briefly on both what Sela and Trevor said, just triggered the thought how important it is to know thyself. I think that's a key to authenticity, integrity, etc., etc.
Great, thanks, Herman. I see we are at 8:30, so maybe what we'll do is just run through everybody, give everybody a quick last thought and wrap up, and then we'll take it from there. Let's start with you, Cecilia.
Wait. Yes, when I was reading Lee's the slides yesterday, when I was reading it, a little thing came up on my phone, which was our karate group where we challenged each other to do a video of whatever you're training. So I did just a video outside when I was punching the bag and kicking whatever. And there's a new girl in our class, and the next thing she wrote, "When I grow up, I want to be Cecile." And I thought, oh my word, I look so terrible. I don't look anything like my sensei that's a 6 Dan or whatever. How can she want to be like me? But I guess there's like increments of what people want to be like anywhere, right from the bottom to the top. And I see that when I help coach the kids as well. They, oh, I want to be like Cecile. Oh my word. Anyway.
Great, thanks, Cecile. Guy?
Yes, once again, very stimulating. From my personal perspective, I actually don't give a damn how I look, whatever, on social media when I go out. That's who I am. If people don't like it, they can get stuffed. I've found over the years that the bottom line, I'm very happy in who I am in my space. And if 3 days go past and I don't communicate with anyone, I'm very comfortable in that. And as Ian said, you've got to find groups of people that can accept you for that. And if they don't, you move on to another group. People come into your life for 3 reasons. People come into your life for a season, however long a season is. Other people come into your life for you to learn and grow. And then other people come into your life for a lifetime. So if you understand those 3 basic principles, when you move in and out of relationships and connections, I think you become a little bit happier in yourself and a little bit more content. And everyone's a role model in whatever way, but if you're not yourself, and there's been some good, vigorous debate to and from here today, and that's what it's all about. If people get touchy, then so be it. Who gives a damn? You know what I mean? Anyway, thank you.
Thanks, Guy. Ian?
Nothing much more to add to what I said earlier, but it's been a stimulating conversation, and certainly I think that these 21 days is there's a lot of good things that are going to come out of that, particular discussions like this, and more particular people are going to reflect, and I would venture to suggest those people like ourselves that are on these calls every day are going to move out of the 21 days or whatever period of time it is with a completely different mindset and a different way of doing things. And I think that's the encouraging aspect of what this 21-day lockdown is going to cause. It's going to create great opportunities, I believe, as opposed to looking at it negatively as remorsefully sitting at home for 21 days.
Great, thanks, Ian. Jasper?
I think that to take the cue from this last slide of Lee, do not wait for leaders, do it alone, person to person. And also Scallo's earlier comment on knowing your identity and, be real. Don't send a representative. I'm just asking myself, we all, or the latest thing going around is the old economy is gone. There's a new economy. Nobody can define it, but they know that the current crisis will have quite an effect on how we will do things in the future. So I'm asking myself, how much of a person's identity has been molded by his job or his job title or the way he's done things before? And we now will have to reinvent ourselves and coming back to say, what was the real value that I was adding at my previous job? So that is not going to go away. It's still there, but to almost redefine ourselves in terms of our value for society, and then find ways in how can I bring my value to the community in a new package in a commercially sustainable way. And I think these will be the sort of questions that we will wrestle with in the CCC and individually as we go forward.
Great, thanks, Jasper. Stella?
Yes, just a final word from me. I'm reflecting on what Jasper is just saying just now, and I'm realizing that, you know, through crisis, there's an opportunity for creativity as well. You know, I'm joining my wife to do Qigong today. I don't even know what Qigong is, you know, but we're going to find ourselves doing new things. We're going to find ourselves expanding if we allow ourselves, you know. So through the pressure and everything, I'm also just reflecting on how there are other things that, you know, it's not just by me becoming a role model, but there are things that I'm looking at as well. Now I'm able to look at my wife because I'm locked down with her. Now I'm inspired by her. Now suddenly she's my role model. Now I want to know what Qigong is. So I'm learning, so I'm growing. I'm just saying there's always opportunity to still keep growing. And we must just keep an open mind and not be afraid to do new things. I found a new group. I'm enjoying the group. I'm enjoying the conversations. It's again, expansion. We found a way to still continue connecting as people, and that's important to me. I think that's just about it from me. I'm blessed, and I send blessings to everyone.
Right, thanks, Stella. Trevor, do you want to have a last word?
You're talking about your wife as your role model. I've got an 11-year-old granddaughter here as my role model. Just watching her and the way that she's behaving over this particular period. You cannot believe the maturity of these youngsters. And you're sitting with them 100% of the time now and watching how they operate. So, I mean, role models come in all different shapes and sizes, and you cherry pick the best of the best that you actually want. And the other thing that I was thinking of from this, I'm not losing sight of the fact that this is almost, and Ian will get this, like a comrades to me. We put in one step in front of the other and we're moving further and further down the road. And each day I feel that we're actually starting to flow faster. And we're gaining momentum with this thing. And I'm asking myself, okay, what is each day actually adding to whatever might be the collective result that comes out after 21 days? How far will we be down the road? What is the exponential curve up that I can expect out of this? And what do I want to take out of today that I can apply 21 days down the road, 20x? I keep on thinking of my 20x. The other thing that came across for me is in the discussion, are we followers doing what we're doing here right now, or are we actually leaders? And that's what I'm going to be thinking through as I lay my bricks for the next 3.5 hours here. Are we followers on the social media platform, or are we starting to lead something, a Mother Teresa type revolution? Are we at the beginning curves of that?
Thanks, Trevor. Herman, a quick last word, and then we'll hand back to Lee to wrap up.
Thank you. You know, we talk about reinventing ourselves, and for me, what I'm experiencing here is not a reinvention, and I'm speaking specifically for myself. It's a continuation of a journey I've been on for quite a while. I remember I mentioned Presencing Institute yesterday that looks at different economic models simply because we know what we presently have is not sustainable, etc., etc. So for me, it's rather a reinforcement of the journey I'm on than a reinvention. Thanks.
Thanks, Herman. Lee, do you want to close out with your last thoughts on the slide that you put up?
Yeah, as you see, as people were talking, I wanted to come back to this slide because it feels like we've come back to this question, and I don't feel like it's a step back. I feel like we've moved to a different level of awareness, and so I'm thinking about the World Economic Forum. When they talk about the fourth industrial revolution, highlights that emotional intelligence is one of the key skills that we need going forward. And now more than ever, because emotional intelligence is about that maturity that Trevor's talking about, that he can see in his 11-year-old, and how do we learn from that? And the very first step in emotional intelligence is self-awareness. And that's that aspect of how am I true to myself, that and who am I that is authentically me, but that can also be the becoming. So this is the paradox that you live with, is what Herman spoke about yesterday, is I am who I am. I'm true to who I want to be. I'm consistent in that, and that is my integrity. But how am I also growing? How am I also becoming? How am I also, Ian was talking about recognizing ego, and that maybe that was something that we need to adjust in our lives and pay attention to. So again, this time comes back, and this is where I want to end with the direction that Trevor was going in, is that these conversations are to stimulate our thinking, to challenge our thinking, but for us to keep asking the questions, and then what are the changes that we need to make? What are some of the differences that we need to do? And Jasper was saying our world is going to look very differently. The who am I where I've put my identity and what it's shaped like going forward may be very different to 21 days before, or in a few months' time. And so it is about that connecting the thinking with the doing, the thinking with the changing.
Great, thanks, Lee. Some fantastic thought stimulators to end off with. So I think that's us for today. Thanks, everyone. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow again at 8 o'clock, and we'll chat then. Good.
Goodbye.